I was visiting a really nice store, West Coast Hunting Supplies, not long ago, and I had my mask on, so no one recognized me, which is a good thing. Anyway, that isn't the point of the story. I was chatting with a gentleman in the parking lot, and I think a lot of people that are on the channel know a lot about guns, but there are a lot of people who tune in and they just know guns maybe from the movies, or they know them as something that goes bang. Anyway, this gentleman was wondering what I would suggest a person could get if they wanted something that not only is good but really looks good. And I've received, actually over time, quite a few letters from people with the same question. They want something that looks really luxurious and shiny and is a good rifle at the same time. Now, if you're a collector out there, you'll know that quite often the appearance of the rifle doesn't tell the whole story. It may be the caliber that makes it rare, it may be the wood that makes it special. There are all kinds of details that collectors, such as myself, know about, but for the average person, they're not so obvious. Anyhow, what I did is I took out some rifles and I thought maybe I'll somehow turn this into a coherent video and just show you how actually tricky it is to get a rifle that really looks great and is great at a reasonable price. I know that some of you will think, well, you have to buy something from Holland and Holland to have a really luxury rifle, or Rigby, or any of the British makers. They go out of their way so that fit and finish is near perfection, and it should be, because you're paying, well, 10,000 pounds and up. That would be an inexpensive British gun these days. But I'm not talking about those very specialized luxury guns. I'm thinking more practically. So I guess I'll start with something very basic. As you know, or as you may know, one of the more popular guns in Europe is the Blaser R8, which came after the R93, and I just happen to have this stock kicking around. So you can see, I don't think most people looking at this would say this is the stock of a luxurious rifle, and yet you can spend thousands of dollars on these R8s. So this is the pistol grip stock. I'm not sure why I have that stock, but it's here. And this is the rifle. So I think that if you're watching this from Germany or Austria or Finland or Sweden, you would know this rifle quite well. Straight pull bolt, very cool mechanism. I think it's safe to say it's quite well known in North America now. I like them, they're excellent. I don't know if you watched the video. I have one of these in 500 Jeffrey, which is something else to behold. Anyway, I thought I'd start with this as an example of what you'd have to call a very high-end rifle that maybe is not exuding what most people would say is glamour and fanciness, and yet it is excellent, and that straight pull function sort of is a standalone thing, but that's not that apparent to anyone who doesn't know rifles that well. Anyway, we'll set this one aside. Now we'll go to something that a lot of people would say is a glamorous rifle, and that's the Ruger number 1. And Ruger knew what he was doing. This is, mimicking the British Farquharson and other falling blocks like the Gibbs, and they're undoubtedly very elegant. I think I have a video with these. This one, somebody did something quite interesting actually. It's a number 1, and it's in 4570, but they went to the trouble of removing the front sight and the quarter rib, which some of you would know should be here. And I think they maybe turned the barrel down, but they had someone do a very good job, because when you do this kind of thing, it's easy to create ridges on the lathe, because you have to take the barrel out. And they made a very light and dynamic little rifle. I thought it was a cool idea. I I can't remember where exactly it came from, but it's something very good. Anyway, you'd look at it, you'd say it's great. The stock is very conservative. The finish is sort of a satin finish, and that's something that people respond to a lot. The wood grain is okay, although fairly plain on this particular Ruger number 1. A lot of Ruger number 1s have excellent grain. Still, I wouldn't say this jumps out of the rack, declaring itself like a super luxurious rifle, but the falling block action and this particular rifle being custom make it kind of special. Browning turns out rifles that are getting close to the point I'm going to make at the end. I'm actually going to select the manufacturer and the rifle that I think best represents a really fancy rifle that's excellent and still at a reasonable price. So if you just wanted something like I probably shouldn't compare it to a Ferrari, but something like that, I have the rifle. This is a Browning bolt rifle. Browning always puts out a flashy looking rig. They put gloss finish. This can be accomplished in a number of ways. The British actually fill the pores of wood. As you know, wood has grain and the grain has pores. So you can't get a glass-like finish unless you fill those pores. The finish will be full of bumps that make it dull looking. Anyway, I think this is probably an epoxy finish or a urethane finish. This is a BBR Browning bolt rifle. This model preceded the A-bolt. A lot of people compare it to a Weatherby. It has the 9 locking lugs, and the 9 locking lugs allow the shallow bolt lift, so the bolt doesn't go very high. You can see it's minimal bolt lift. That's a nice feature. And actually, this probably to most people would look like a very, fancy rifle. What is this? This is a 270, I think. Yeah, 270, shiny stock, beautifully polished metal, no park rising, no ceramic coating or whatever it is they put on guns these days. It's good. I'll show you something really neat. I buy a lot of guns when I haven't seen them, or they send me a picture like this and it looks good. And as you probably also know by now, I trust people, just because living the other way never made sense to me. This fellow was really smart, and I don't know whether I would say I was cheated, but this stock broke a long time ago. And what the fellow did, or got someone to do, is, I don't know if you can see these brass pins. It's going to be hard to focus. So when I saw the gun in the pictures which he emailed me, it looked, as you can see, in excellent condition. But there's actually a break in the stock, and here are 2 pins, and here are 2 pins. And it's very, very well done, and it's tricky to get the finish this smooth, so that I actually didn't really notice the pins. It took a few times out of the vault. Anyway, I never said anything to the fellow. I thought he must be desperate or something. He could have told me about the crack in the stock, but I guess he decided not to. Anyway, I thought I'd show you that one. So Browning is one of those rifles that looks fancy and is excellent. Here's one. I kind of brought it out for 2 reasons. One, it's an excellent rifle, Ruger 77. Some people think it replaced the pre-64 Model 70, and in a way it did. Very plain looking rifle, classic stock, no Monte Carlo, Tang safety. And you may notice on this one that it has no dovetail on the receiver. And a lot of people aren't aware that for a while Ruger made a receiver that was just round. You would use conventional scope basis on this round top Model 77. So they do exist. For the Ruger collectors that don't know, but most people know that. Anyway, it doesn't, again, jump out as a super fancy rifle, but it's an excellent rifle. Then we get into the fancier and more unusual rifles. I'll probably maybe start with the Mauser 66. So this would be not just kind of fancy and collectible, but it has an action that most people find quite striking. You know, after the war there were lots of Mauser 98s, lots of custom rifles, Springfield, all kinds of rifles, and Mauser wanted to make something that was distinctive, so they you can see how this action works, quite unique, because they call it a telescopic action. It has two locking lugs, you can see them. We actually have other videos on the Mauser 66, just because it's, in my opinion, one of the most extraordinary bolt actions. Now the telescopic action shortens the rifle, so effectively the length of the rifle's a lot less than it would be, and people like that. And you remove a couple of bolts, you can change barrels. They stopped making them some time ago, and this is a particularly nice one, 30-06. I think I might have a couple of extra barrels for it. Very light, very short. Again, what makes it glamorous and exclusive is the action. Other than that, I mean, you can always get a custom stock made for any of these, but they didn't necessarily use the best wood in the 70s. I don't know exactly why, but a lot of rifles made in the 70s had kind of airgun quality stocks. I'm not sure this is one of them, but it's not the best. And that one, of course, had European styling. Then when I took that one, I had to show you the Merkel KR1, which is much more modern, but I guess what they saw was the brilliance of the Mauser 66, but they felt they could update it, and they did a great job. So first thing they did is, it's not a two-lug bolt. The lugs, the locking lugs, are actually divided, and you could call it a three-lug bolt. And as a result, the bolt lift is very shallow, which is a great feature, and it still has the shortness of action. But I forgot to show you on the Mauser, you can't get at the magazine from the bottom. It's worth it to show you again. And please be patient, we're reaching the point of the video. So you can see you can't take ammunition out from the bottom. It's from the top. Everything's accomplished from the top. So we'll set that one down, and back to the Merkel. And on the Merkel, it's quite clever. You just push this button, and you have, I mean, I think that's quite elegant. Some people criticize it because they feel that the trigger should be rigid and part of the action, but as you know, I'm not fussy about triggers in the first place. Then you can remove the magazine. But just again, getting toward an exclusive and glamorous, although not necessarily really glamorous looking. The wood is quite dull, but the rifle itself is, I think, one of the coolest bolt actions that's been recently made. And again, not that many people know about the 66, and not that many people, I would say maybe even less, know about the Merkel. This, by the way, is one of the smoothest bolt actions. Much like the 66, it runs on rails that you can see here. Unlike the 66, it doesn't have that clack-clack of the telescopic action. So this is getting into exclusive gun territory for sure. But again, it doesn't have that super appeal. I better go to this is a Carl Gustav, which is essentially a Zauer 80 or a Zauer 90. And what makes this rifle sort of qualify for that exclusive club of extraordinary rifles is the fit and finish in the first place. And the action has no locking lugs that are visible. We've been through this before in prior videos. The lugs are retracted inside the bolt. They're at the back, but you can just look for the other video. If you can find one of these, made by Colt. Colt and Sauer work together, just like Sauer worked with Carl Gustav, which is a Swedish company, or was. And the Colt is finished like jewelry. It's got a gloss stock, usually a higher grade wood. And some of those are definitely the most attractive rifles, but you know, they're a couple of grand or more, but I thought that's worth showing. There are many that I'm missing, and you'll be right to point them out, like the Mannlicher Schönauers. There's many fancy rifles. I brought this one out just because of the quality of the wood. This is actually, you may not have seen this rifle before. I'm not sure if we did a video. This is a Browning Acera, and has the straight pull action. It's actually based on the bar, but you can see this one would be kind of on its own because of the exceptional wood. That always makes a rifle you know, really exceptional to look at. And again, not everyone looks like this. Oh, and then here's a fancy one that was available for a while. Not all these guns are mine, but I gathered them so that I could show you what I'm talking about. This is called a Golden Eagle, made in Japan by, I believe it was Nikko. It's a rear locking lug design. You can see the lugs just in front of the bolt handle. This is now getting into fancy gun territory. Nobody could look at this and say this is a plain Jane rifle. With the trigger and the gloss stock, quality of the walnut looks excellent to me. You got the skip line checkering, which some people call French checkering. The metal is finished to perfection. I mean, they even made the plug screws gold. This would definitely be, you know, a super stylish rifle if you're just interested in that. And then we reached the conclusion, which and I've owned lots of these, and if you balance everything out, Roy Weatherby got it right with his Mark V. You've got the shallow bolt lift, you've gloss stock. This one has machine cut checkering, but the checkering was always good on Weatherby's. This one's got the extra appeal, if you like that kind of thing, of flutes in the barrel, and these are meaningful flutes. A lot of times these days there are flutes cut which give you the rigidity of a barrel, a full diameter barrel, without the weight, but these are cut deeply enough so that there's a significant weight reduction. So the rifle may look heavy, but it's actually not heavy. This particular action isn't polished to, you know, like a glass finish like that Nikko Golden Eagle. But the Weatherby stock influenced and still influences generations of other rifles. That Monte Carlo sweep makes everything look, I have to say, very dramatic. I think there's some kind of inserts and fillers. They just do everything to make someone feel that they really own an exceptional and scarce rifle. These are not priced in the $10,000 range. You can order custom Weatherbys with all kinds of engraving. And I should say, if you want to spend a lot of money, just order a custom rifle, but they won't necessarily, to the untrained eye, look better or shoot better or flatter than the Weatherby. This one's in 6.5 by 300, which is very flat shooting. Many people will say the bore doesn't last as long because of heat erosion. There's a lot of powder. But I don't think most people actually care, and most hunters don't actually shoot enough to wear out a barrel. It's something that, you know, if you're really busy shooting, maybe get a 6.5 Creedmoor or something like that. Anyway, yeah, I should send Weatherby an invoice, because I looked through everything and I try to be objective, but the Weatherby has kind of everything. And I know from talking to virtually hundreds of people over the decades, there's just an admiration for Weatherby. They have the name, It's even engraved beautifully on the action. You won't be able to see it, but you can punch Weatherby in. Everything about them is stylish, and then I guess Roy wanted to be one up with his calibers, and mostly, in fairness, he accomplishes that. Of course, there are always faster cartridges, but that doesn't necessarily have the meaning that one thinks. So I thought that's enough material for a good video, and there are many Weatherby models. You can get laser marks, they come engraved. I had one in 338. We say Lapua, but people are writing me from Scandinavia saying I should say Lapua. I hope I get that right. Anyway, learn something every day. That's probably it. We have a whole bunch of videos scheduled. I had a bunch of things go wrong, so I wasn't able to film as I usually do, but I look forward to seeing you more over the coming weeks. Please keep writing with your hunting stories and gun stories. And yeah, I mean, these Weatherbys, some people kind of say they're too fancy. I don't know, that's a very comfortable rifle, and people write me from Russia and all over the world. This is a really loved and admired design. If you have one of these, there's nobody who's going to say you got a really junky rifle there, which seems to be on a lot of people's minds. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. And someone told me that if you don't push, I think they said the bell, then you won't get notified when I release a new video, and that's apparently what helps the channel a lot. Okay, take care until next time. We'll see you then.